This short unit deals with convergence, extinction, balanced polymorphism, and genetic drift. That's all kind of a mouthful, but we're going to talk about each of these in turn. Convergent evolution is an interesting phenomenon where unrelated species evolve similar characteristics because of living in a similar environment or doing something similar. So a good example of that is bees and hummingbirds both have very long tongues for accessing nectar that's found deep inside flowers. So the long tongue of the birds and the bees are considered to be convergent characteristics. Extinction basically means a species is gone forever. Unfortunately, lots of amazing animals, such as these flying reptiles, went extinct millions of years ago. The Permian extinction, which happened 250 million years ago, during the Permian extinction, we lost 96% of the species on the planet. Balanced polymorphism is an interesting concept. A polymorphism, morphism referring to the way something looks, and poly referring to many. So polymorphism is genetic diversity within a species for a particular trait. So one example would be plumage color or feather color and pattern of color in birds. This is a species of duck called a wood duck. So the polymorphism in the wood duck population is showing that there are some genes for very bright coloration, like in this one, and other genes for darker, more camouflaged coloration, like in this other one. A balanced polymorphism is when natural selection keeps the number of forms, or morphisms, morphs, stable. Because when one morph increases, the other one tends to decrease, and when one decreases, the other one tends to increase. So for instance, if there were fewer female wood ducks, which is the darker one here, their fitness would go up very quickly because there would be fewer females for the males, which is this one, to mate with. So the females would be in much higher demand. And so likewise, if there were very few males, males would be in greater demand, and so their fitness would go up. And so you end up with this balance of when one morph increases, the other morph tends to decrease, and vice versa, so that the number of morphs tends to stay relatively equal in a population. And then we have the concept of genetic drift, which is the way that a gene pool in a population can change, but it is due to something random. With natural selection, change in the genes in a population is not random at all. It's the result of which individual is best adapted to its environment. That one's more likely to survive and reproduce. But with genetic drift, there's a random change in allele frequency for a particular trait in one population. And so an example is that maybe a storm randomly kills the majority of squirrels in a particular population that are containing alleles for a light coat color. And so as a result of this storm, the coat color of the population would move towards something that was much darker because the lighter colored squirrels had been randomly killed in that storm. So genetic drift can cause a change in the allele frequency in a population, but it's completely due to something random rather than to an adaptation, which is how natural selection functions. So make sure you check your supplementary readings to understand convergence, extinction, balanced polymorphisms, and genetic drift.